Can I get obvious answers for 1,000, please, Alex? So, in completely unsurprising news, we have a bombshell, I would consider, report out of the Grayzone, as they usually produce. Kind of 2 decades in the making, it seems like. Kind of seems like it is an article where anyone who's plugged in on the anti-establishment left or right kind of would see this article headline and say, obviously, kind of no shit, Sherlock. But now we just have more of an actual paper trail to back up what our suspicions already were. So, if you weren't familiar, I kind of skimmed this article, but I'm going to go through it just to give my commentary. In 2003, Haiti underwent its first presidential election, as far as I'm aware. So, we go here. Let me not butcher his name. It's Jean-Bertrand Aristide was the first. Let's go over here. This guy right here. This was the first democratically elected president in Haiti. He is a Haitian former Salesian priest and politician. And let's scroll down. So, the first presidency in which he was elected, first democratic election in Haiti, was in 1990. He won. So after his first election in 1990, they tried to have one in 1987, is what I'm learning, and that didn't really work. A lot of violence broke out, a lot of political tension and conflicting interests in the election, so they reheld and had it in 1990, in which Aristide won. Almost immediately, it seems that there was a unsuccessful but still attempted coup, but it was quashed by the army. Then we get here to the 1991 coup d'etat, just giving a little background for what the Grayzone uncovered. So here we go right off the bat. In September 1991, the army performed a coup against him, led by Army General Raoul Cedras, who had been promoted by Aristide in June to commander-in-chief of the army. Aristide, the president, was deposed on 29th of September 1991, and after several days sent into exile, his life only saved by the intervention of U.S., French, and Venezuelan diplomats. However, even on Wikipedia, as shady as Wikipedia can be, they acknowledge that here in 1991, high-ranking members of the Haitian National Intelligence Service, which had been set up and financed in the 1980s by the U.S. CIA as part of the war on drugs, were involved in the coup and were reportedly still receiving funding and training from the CIA for intelligence gathering activities at the time of the coup. But the funding reportedly ended after the coup. Kind of sounds like the U.S. already got a little bit of what they wanted, so they didn't really need to pay anymore. But I digress. The New York Times said that no evidence suggests that the CIA backed the coup or intentionally undermined President Aristide. Yeah, okay. I especially believe it from the New York Times. Yeah. However, press reports about possible CIA involvement in Haitian politics before the coup sparked congressional hearings in the United States. There we go. We're already involved in the 90s, in the first coup. So, as if it wasn't already obvious enough, just in, the obvious fact that the CIA loves to go carry out coups. It's like their national pastime. Honestly, what else do they do all day? Um, as if that already wasn't obvious enough, just the fact that even Wikipedia is acknowledging that there was basically, ironclad proof that there was involvement in the 1991 coup. Do we really need any more evidence? Well, the Grayzone has what I would consider, and what they even call, I believe, in the article, the smoking gun evidence. So, he returns in 1994. U.S. troops were deployed in the country by Bill Clinton. 94, Clinton returned Aristide to Haiti to complete his term in office. So, he broke from the OPL in 1996 over what he called its distance from the people, created a new political party, the Famille Lavalas. Let's see, what do they run on? Probably anti-imperialism, which is why we couldn't have had him in office. By we, I mean the CIA and our State Department. So, although the U.S. government claimed that the election turnout was hardly over 10%, international observers saw a turnout of around 50%. So, this was the 2000 presidential election in which Aristide was elected again. Turnout of around 50% according to international observers, which, are we going to believe the U.S.? Really? And CNN reported a turnout of 60% with over 92% of the people voting for Aristide. If there was ever a blowout, that is like what should be in the dictionary definition of a political blowout. A picture of this man right here, just walking like this. The Bush administration in the U.S. and Haitian expatriate opposition leaders in Florida would use the criticism over the election to argue for an embargo on international aid to the Haitian government. What a surprise. So, we have his second presidential term after all of this, strife and turmoil and all this crazy stuff was happening in the 90s. So, in 2003, Aristide called for France, the former colonizer of the country, to pay $21 billion in restitution to Haiti for the $90 million gold francs supplied to France by Haiti in restitution for French property, including enslaved people, that was appropriated in the Haitian Rebellion over the period from 1825 to 1947. So as if the West, the US and its allies, like the UK, France, and, surrounding countries, as if they didn't already dislike him enough. This kind of anti-imperial message and also demand for reparations, which, we spend billions of dollars all the time. So you might be thinking, well, $21 billion, that, wouldn't be too much to just satisfy this guy, especially considering how much we pay now. 20 years doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of dollar valuation. And, why didn't we just pay it? Well, if I am reading this correctly, it's not so much the actual payment, but it's the acknowledgement, and then also the fact that the CIA probably saw him as a threat. He seems like a pretty populist leader, and if you've looked into anything regarding the CIA and their actions, they cannot have populists. Anyone who dares to buck the establishment of going along with what the West wants, more so when it is regarding stealing natural resources, but is offering a populist message and a nationalist message, which is not inherently bad to be nationalist. It seems like the CIA wants to step in because they're afraid that their gravy train, for example, Venezuela, on oil or other natural resources, is in jeopardy. So we need to install a puppet that is more friendly to the West. So then we get to the 2004 overthrow, in which I will switch back over to the Grayzone article. This is written and published on March 1st, a couple days ago, by Jeb Sprague and Kit Klarenberg. Now, I had heard of Kit Klarenberg through, the Grayzone before, and just watching YouTube political shows. I had never heard of Jeb Sprague, so I looked him up. Seems to be a well-researched fellow. We have him at the Grayzone. He is a research associate at the University of California, Riverside, and previously taught at UVA and UCSB. He is the author of Globalizing the Caribbean, Political Economy, Social Change, and the Transnational Capitalist Class, Paramilitarism and the Assault on Democracy in Haiti, and is the editor of Globalization and Transnational Capitalism in Asia and Oceania. He is a co-founder of the Network for the Critical Studies of Global Capitalism. So this guy, just based on what I'm reading, knows what he's talking about. And obviously, if you don't already know who Kit Klarenberg is, go look him up. Great investigative journalist. Kicked off of Twitter. Can't find him there anymore, but he writes for the Grayzone as well as a couple other places, I believe. Let me, I don't know if I can find him on here. Klarenberg Grayzone. See if he has yeah, there we go. Cool. Go to his author page. Investigative journalist exploring the role of intelligence services in shaping politics and perceptions. So you have a guy who writes about global capitalism and kind of has experience with writing about Haitian politics and world affairs. And then you have Kit Klarenberg, who is kind of like a expert, or he specializes in writing about our intelligence services, our State Department's involvement in world affairs. So it's like the perfect match made in heaven to write about this cable that they actually got a hold of. So let me go and kind of summarize what this is saying. So the Grayzone, and this was hilarious to me, documents released to the Grayzone under FOIA, which is the Freedom of Information Act, request, no doubt unintentionally. So they FOIA'd something, probably from what I'm getting at, not regarding this story at all, or maybe tangentially related to, but like not necessarily involved with this story. And they received this diplomatic classified cable. It says, no doubt unintentionally, revealed that the jailbreak was a part of a complex U.S. intelligence operation aimed at undermining Aristide's presidency. At the heart of this operation was Janice L. Elmore, a CIA operative working undercover as a Department of State political officer in the Port-au-Prince U.S. Embassy at the time. So you'll see later as we scroll down in this article, and I'm not going to read it verbatim, I'll kind of summarize everything and give my thoughts, but you get to see pictures of this woman who is the, I have to say, alleged CIA operative who had involvement in this. So the breakout set in motion a violent regime change campaign, which ultimately ousted Aristide from office on February 29, 2004. After being deposed and flown to South Africa, Aristide claimed to have been kidnapped by U.S. forces and directly accused Washington of orchestrating the plot. His nation quickly transformed into a despotic failed state as ruthless paramilitaries ran roughshod over the population. U.S. Marines and later UN troops were deployed to keep the peace, of course. We create the problem and then we come in as the good guys who are just trying to help, which in practice meant violently cracking down on not only armed anti-coup militants, but also outraged demonstrators and civilians, of course. Demonstrators, probably pro-Aristide demonstrators. In 2022, the former French ambassador to Haiti admitted that France and the US did, in fact, orchestrate the coup, which he acknowledged was probably due to Aristide's repeated demands that Haitians be returned the $21 billion in reparations they'd forcibly paid their former slave masters in Paris since 1825. So like I was saying, sure, it has to do with the money, but it probably has to do with the openly, if you want to call it, hostile rhetoric towards the West, the US and its allies, regarding these reparations. And we can't have that. We can't have someone who doesn't just essentially fall in line. So I'm sure they saw it as a piece of cake to foment some kind of coup, foment discord within the country, especially since they had done it before, and get rid of this guy. And then they come in and probably oversee a new election. In their eyes, their plan is to oversee a new election and essentially install someone who's much more friendly to the West and is not going to be saying crazy things like, hey, maybe we should get some reparations for the fact that we were screwed over all the way back starting in 1825. So, dispatched from the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince in September 2022 by then U.S. Ambassador Brian Dean Curran, the file places Elmore, apparently a veteran CIA operative, in a meeting with disloyal local police officers and coup plotters in Gonaives the night prior to the jailbreak. If I'm butchering any of these words, forgive me. The file reads as confirmation of a high-level U.S. government involvement in the 2004 coup in Haiti and raises profound questions about American involvement in other recent regime change campaigns throughout the hemisphere. Like I said, you can just, just out of curiosity, let's just do a thought experiment and say CIA coup. Wow, okay, we have a lot of different human rights violations by the CIA, probably countless. That's not what I'm looking for. I want list of CIA coups. United States involvement in regime change. You can just go, all right, prior to 1887, all the way up to the present. And you can just go down and down and down. And we're only at 1957 and then down. And this is all the stuff that we know. This is not the stuff that, hasn't been illuminated yet. Like, for example, I wonder if they even have the involvement in the 1991. Okay, here we go. 1994 in Haiti. So they do have that. I wonder if they have 2004, though. They don't. All right, well, here we go. Should be added to the list after this reporting. I have a feeling it's not going to be, because the Grayzone is very much retaliated against by our, State departments and other media apparatchiks. So, again, CIA is kind of well versed when it comes to overthrowing other governments. So he was exiled, supporters massacred. This is horrendous. I suggest I'll have the link to this this article in the description of this video. I suggest you go read it in full. I'm going to kind of summarize it really, really quickly. So we have, he was returned to office in 2001. We talked about that. U.S. President George W. Bush imposed crippling sanctions on Haiti, moving to freeze the World Bank and IMF loans, because those are always totally on the up and up and meant to empower these countries. IMF loans and World Bank funds, totally, while blocking Port-au-Prince from U.S. aid and development assistance. What moral actors we are. Washington justified the destructive measures by claiming there were irregularities in the election. So, I don't believe a word they say about irregularities in the election. But let's just grant that for a second and do a thought experiment. Irregularities in the election mean that we should have crippling sanctions and block, what did they say? Block them from U.S. aid and development assistance. So all of these things don't actually hurt if you believe that there was shenanigans going on in the election. They don't actually hurt the higher-ups. They hurt the people who are essentially innocent in all of this, regardless of if the election was actually on the up and up or not. So the morality of this is already in the dumpster, as usual for our State Department. So, pointing to figures in the country's opposition who boycotted the vote, yet polls showed voters strongly supported Aristide and rejected the boycott. So, in other words, they're full of shit in terms of, we don't believe this election. That's always just their excuse that they give when the people of a country democratically elect someone that we don't particularly like. Always. Undeterred, Aristide's government quickly set about mobilizing the poor, fostering neighborhood truces, bolstering healthcare and education systems. Oh, sounds like a real bad guy. Doubling the minimum wage and holding accountable paramilitaries and their financiers. So, a true populist, a true nationalist, taking care of the people of his own country. Some things that we can't even get done. How long has it been since the minimum wage was increased here, let alone doubled? I mean, now, honestly, doubling wouldn't be that much because it's been so damn long before the federal, or since the federal minimum wage was even touched. But the fact that he came in, doubled it, bolstered healthcare and education, and tried to rein in these paramilitaries, no doubtably some of them had ties to the U.S., name me something wrong that he's done so far, at least in this article. Though popular among average Haitians, the programs were seen as a dire political threat by local opposition figures and their backers in Washington. Yeah, I wonder why. Probably because if he succeeds with these programs, this guy's like going to be impossible not to lose against in the next election. He's just going to, like, it's kind of like FDR. Like, if you don't have term limits, the guy was doing such great populist programs that what are you going to do other than term limit him out of office? Because if you're not offering something at least as good, if not better, then why would people vote for you? So, of course, his opposition, who are backed by the United States, saw this as a threat. Again, we're supposed to be the moral authority here, and we see a politician actually doing something good for his country as a threat. Awesome. So, here we go. The Bush administration embraced a development assistance embargo, which successfully pressured most NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and other governments to cut off aid. And the National Endowment for Democracy, a U.S. intelligence cutout established to influence elections abroad. They're still doing that all the way up today. You know, heard of a lot of stories. I mean, you'll never get this in the mainstream media. Heard a lot of stories about the NED, you know, still fucking around with countries. Began organizing disunited opposition parties into a single umbrella group under the guise of democracy promotion. Where have we heard that before? 1,000 times. Soon enough, a violent paramilitary campaign erupted, targeting government infrastructure in Port-au-Prince before spreading to rural areas which strongly supported Lavalas, the movement associated with Aristide. Amid the tumult, the spectacular jailbreak was carried out in Gonaïves in August 2002, and Métayer was freed alongside dozens of paramilitaries and anti-government gangsters. Great. So all these people who sound like they were rightfully imprisoned for trying to organize a coup or violence of some kind were freed in this crazy movie plot jailbreak. Wonder why that could happen. So here's the smoking gun. Starkly stamped recommend denial in full. Let me say that again. Starkly stamped recommend denial in full. That's just insane. Like they have a stamp that they're like, yeah, this is classified. If anyone even asks about it, deny all of it. Don't even say like, oh, there's a little bit of truth, but whatever, it mostly false. No, deny it in full because it's that damaging to our reputation, as if it already hasn't been tainted enough, as if the entire world already doesn't know that we coup whoever we want to. Starkly stamped recommend denial in full. A previously undisclosed cable was dispatched from the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince to the desk of Secretary of State Colin Powell on September 18, 2002. It records how a confidant of Aristide, Père Duvalson, had approached the diplomatic mission and complained that a U.S. Embassy vehicle was spotted in Gonaïves the night before the jailbreak. According to the cable, the Dominican Republic's ambassador to Haiti noted Aristide himself had raised this issue, pointing to a U.S. official named Janice Elmore as an orchestrator of the instability. The cable reveals how immediately prior to the jailbreak, Elmore suddenly informed embassy officials that she had meetings in Cap Haitian and would return by road. The officials cautioned her about traveling in Gonaïves and our ban on travel there. In response, she said she would merely be transiting the area, adding that she would be accompanied by a police escort. Probably these police that were mentioned earlier. They made no mention of her conducting business there, which would be against embassy procedures. They urged her to be very careful and exercise good judgment. So here we go. Duvalson claimed Elmore met with law enforcement officials close to Danny Toussaint, a local political figure who had served in the military, headed Haiti's interim police force, and was once Aristide's personal bodyguard. This fucking traitor right here. The charismatic and power-hungry Toussaint gained a reputation as a political chameleon. Oh, totally sounds like the type of guy that is trustworthy. As has been documented, he went behind Aristide's back to coordinate with the U.S. Embassy and local power brokers on his own plans to oust the president and assume control of Haiti's popular movement. Hinting at possible friction within the embassy, Ambassador Curran is quoted in the document as insisting, "The State Department has designated me as the only one who should talk to Toussaint, and only with specific instructions from Washington." In comments on Elmore's meetings in Gonaïves, which appear to indicate she was acting off script, Curran wrote, Elmore never mentioned that she had been in Gonaïves prior to or after the incident involving Métayer. At the time, officials were under explicit orders not to travel to much of Haiti, including Gonaïves. So, just to wrap up and summarize, she essentially had, like it says here, mobilized questionable individuals in Haiti. She's essentially on the hook, according to this article, allegedly, that she's on the hook for kind of stoking the flames that led to the coup in 2004. Essentially, that it would not have happened without her direct involvement and just the involvement of the US CIA and intelligence agencies in general. So this is her, Janice Elmore, alleged CIA officer. This is the woman who, quote unquote, mobilized questionable individuals, according to this article. She was looped into sensitive discussions about the U.S. economic war on Haiti. You should read the article to get this. She's named as a player in CIA cocaine conspiracy. Has there ever been something on the up and up that the CIA has ever done? Has it always just... Has there literally ever been anything where it's like, you know what, that actually was in the actual interests of the people of the United States and not just our government's power. She was interviewed behind closed doors about the knowledge of the CIA drug trafficking. So she's just, it's painting a picture of her as just a totally trustworthy, fantastic individual. Here's her again, sitting on a camel. In the wake of the coup, mass graves, mass murder, zero accountability, just like the United States likes it. Yep. Murdering, imprisoning anti-coup protesters. The U.S. and its allies installed a new prime minister. What do you know? We installed someone that we were friendly with. Gonaives-born Gerard Latortue, a former World Bank official living in Boca Raton, Florida at the time. So, sure, guy was born in Haiti. But, I mean, what I'm gathering is that he emigrated out of Haiti and was living in Florida with connections to the World Bank. As if it couldn't just be more obvious. It's insane that more people don't see the connection immediately. I mean, in 2004, I was 8 years old, so I'm not exactly looking into this. And I'm sure there were journalists already knowing that this is happening. But it's just, the United States is so propagandized, it's insane. You could probably show this to a bunch of people, and they would still find a way to weasel out and not find anything wrong with this. The fact that this guy is not even living in Haiti and is connected to the World Bank, as if he doesn't have ulterior motives other than helping Haiti to, become a established, stable nation. Yeah, okay. Meanwhile, paramilitaries reign supreme, murdering and imprisoning anti-coup protesters, of course, with zero accountability whatsoever. Study published in The Lancet found approximately 8,000 people were murdered in the greater Port-au-Prince area in the 22 months following the coup. Jesus Christ. Absolute massacre. Documented U of Miami human rights investigation documented mass murder by police and UN occupation forces, as well as mass graves, cramped prisons. Just, it's fucking horrible. Everything we touch, especially with our CIA, just turns to absolute shit. Haiti's public administrators, judiciary, and security forces were subsequently purged of any and all officials still loyal to democracy. Because, of course, we want to spread democracy, and all that just means is you can't actually have democracy. We'll tell you who you're allowed to elect. Mass layoffs and attacks on anti-coup labor unions were commonplace. Dissident journalists faced assassination and arrest, while government's L'Union newspaper and Aristide Foundation for Democracy's Creole language newspaper, D8, were forcibly shuttered. Of course they were. Meanwhile, those responsible for the Rabateau massacre and other paramilitary crimes were shielded from prosecution. A request for comment by the Grayzone to the Facebook account of Janice Elmore and email address displayed on SOL Worldwide's now defunct website have gone unanswered. Probably a 50-50 on, whether she actually saw that or not. But if she did, she's not going to answer that, of course. But they're doing their due diligence and reaching out, of course. She was not available at the phone number listed there. I mean, she didn't look like a spring chicken in those pictures, and those are 2 decades ago. So if she is still alive and kicking, she's probably not. Maybe she's in good health, but, she's not young. The State Department refused our request for comment, referring us instead to the CIA, which has not responded to an email inquiry. They're just kicking the ball around it wasn't us, it's the CIA. And, largely they are kind of disjointed. They're their own little heads of the Hydra, all kind of working for the same body, but also semi-independent. And, do I believe that they had no idea what the CIA is doing? Sure. But do I believe that the State Department might have been like, dude, they probably hid half the stuff that you uncovered from us too. And I'm not trying to be charitable to the State Department because they're horrendous in and of themselves, but yeah, just pretty crazy story. Of course, Grayzone doing great investigative journalism. Hilarious that, it's most likely that this cable got released to them on accident, and just illuminates proof essentially of what we already knew, that like when there's a coup anywhere in the world, there's a 99% chance we have something to do with it. And if you look there and all of a sudden you see that they democratically elected someone who was anti-imperialism, anti like West, not in terms of just being openly hostile to the West, but even just things like, hey, we don't want to essentially be a puppet of the West and the United States and give them free oil or free natural resources. We would like to actually be our own independent country and benefit from our natural resources and help our people. If you see a coup right after someone like that, actually populist and nationalist was elected, oh, it's almost a certainty that we had something to do with it. So, good job to Jeb Sprague and Kit Klarenberg. I suggest that you go read this article in full, even though I kind of read most of it here. Give them a page view and really get into the nitty gritty. I kind of skipped over some of the other parts where it's goes over some of the horrors that are inflicted by our meddling in the world. Educate yourself, give the Grayzone a bookmark and then a follow on everywhere. They have their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I don't even know what VK is. And then their Telegram channel. Follow them wherever you follow news. They're a great resource, and they provide illuminating content on things that you would never see on mainstream media. So that was it for this story. I know it's a little bit of a long one, but peace.